Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Wood Resurrected. I've got a project that I'm working on that requires some turning on a lathe, and my lathe chisels are fairly dull, so I'm going to be sharpening those up using a combination of the grinder and the stones on today's video, so stay tuned. So before we get started on sharpening these chisels, I want to ask you guys to swing by and check out my Patreon page. And the link will be up here, and any support is greatly appreciated. So being that I have a shopsmith, I've actually had some requests on doing some turning using the lathe function of it. So I need to get these chisels sharpened up. I've been, as you can see here, I've been playing around, doing trying some various techniques out, making sure that I'm prepared before I actually get down to the project. This is just a little 6-inch piece of wood, but I tried various shapes and sanded it out, things like that. I got another blank here that I can play with. I think I've got most of the techniques down. Granted, I'm still learning, and that's something that I'll have to pick up as I go, because I tend to be a hands-on learner. But because I have two of these skew chisels, I tried my hand at sharpening one of them and it turned out really well. I found that I have a fairly steady hand, and I'll show you the technique on this other skew chisel when I sharpen that one. And I think after that, other than the skew chisel, I think that's the only one I'll probably run across the grinder, because this one is not really that sharp at all. So I want to get a good edge on both sides. This one's actually a little lopsided. So I'll use the grinder on this, but everything else I think I may be able to get the edge back on it if I use my stones instead, because I want to remove as little material as possible. And I think the stones might give me that more than the grinder will, because after I use the grinder, more than likely I'm going to use the stones anyway, just to hone out that edge and get it as sharp as I can. So we'll get on with that process. We'll start with the skew chisel on the grinder and we'll go from there. So this is an 8-inch bench grinder. It's got what I would consider a fine grinding stone on one side. We're going to use that. The other side has a rougher edge to it. And what I'm going to do is essentially just like when I'm turning, all I want to do is I want to start on the bevel side right back here. And what I'm going to do is try to make the grinder land in the middle. And then I'm going to slide it out and rotate it until I see some of the sparks coming over the top. God, this thing is so dull. So until I see sparks coming over the top, and that'll let me know that I'm right on that edge. And then I can just ride that edge. And essentially all I'll have to do is just rotate the tool across and back, and that'll allow me to make a nice smooth even edge on both sides, and we'll be able to rotate that back and forth. Okay, so I lost what I was trying to record on this side, where I got this side, you can see I got a fairly good surface on it. I apologize for not catching this, but we're definitely going to catch this side. But one thing I do like about it is it's really quiet. So we're going to work on this back side and we're going to try and get that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to set this back edge. I want to try to land it about right in the middle against the stone. And then I'm going to work back and forth until the sparks start coming over the edge. And that way we've got a fairly smooth surface similar to this side. And I'm not applying a lot of pressure. So we're going to put our finger right underneath this rest so we don't have to worry about it sliding into our grinder here. And we're just going to feel our way up. So there's the back, there's the edge. I'm going to be right about there. A little further. A little further. Yeah, see, we're catching way up here on the tip, so we want to come up further than that yet. That looks good. getting this edge worked through really nicely. You can see how it's fairly smooth. We haven't got up to the tip or back to this corner yet though. There we got more of this front edge, but you can see right across here how it's a nice smooth bevel. And we just want to get up to this corner so we got the whole blade covered. And there we go. Nice smooth edge, fairly sharp. So I do have this diamond sharpening stone, but I don't think that any of these chisels are technically dull enough that we really need that level of material. So what I'm going to start with is this 1000 grit, it's a Shapton ceramic whetstone. So it's a fairly simple process. Add some water to our stone, and we'll just start right off with these skew chisels. And if you've seen my video on chisel sharpening for my standard wood chisels, you know which method that I tend to use. And so if you want to check that out, I'll post the link for you. And that way you can swing over and see the method. It's a fairly simple method. It's a countdown method. Right now, all I'm doing is essentially roughing this out. So I want to put a nice edge on these chisels. Just getting everything but the tip. So all you got to do is take the weight off the back. And then pull it across. You can fairly easily get a pretty good edge across that tip. Let's work on the other side here. Chisel sharpening, I think, is one thing that you cannot rush. If you try to rush it, your edge will be all off, and it just won't be as sharp as you really want it to be. And because I want these to be sharp, the reason for that is because if you have sharp chisels when you're turning, it'll save you some of your effort when you have to sand your piece. Alright, so let's start on the countdown method. Alright, so we're going to do that with all. I'm going to do both of my skews. So I got two, I might as well. And then from there, I'll probably move on to our parting tool, the scraper, and then the the most difficult will be the roughing gouges. So we'll get to those last. All right, so with that done, we're gonna move on to our skew, or excuse me, our parting tool. And this one mostly use the tip. So we're not gonna do a whole lot with it, other than to make that tip a little more pronounced, and it feels like this is rounded a little bit, or it's got something stuck to it. Again, it's just a place and pull. So now we get down to some of the more complicated stuff. The rounded edge, and you can see this one's kind of corroded, is going to be a little bit more difficult. So I'm essentially going to rotate and see if I can't get this back bevel worked all the way down to the tip so we can get a nice sharp scraper. There we go. Let's work that edge off a little bit. Good. All right. So with these, I think I might have changed my mind. And with the gouges, I think I might just see about going to the grinder and just doing a real, so because I can set this up there and just give it a rotation. So let's try that. Pretty sharp. It's not too bad. This 1 inch though, that one is pretty dull, especially on the sides here. So let's see how good or not good I am at that. All right, so apparently I'm going to be having some mic issues today, and some camera issues to go with it. So I got this sharpened up. You can see here, I probably have to come down here with it. You can see here how it's got a nice edge all the way around there. And the way I did that is it's the same way I did the skew chisels, except, so I find the nice edge and then I rotated it, making sure not to let it slide up or down. And then I rotated it to get both sides. And if you want to do the same thing with like a bowl skew, or bowl skew, if you want to do the same thing with a bowl gouge, all you got to do is steepen your angle a little bit and then probably do a little bit of a turn on both sides. But I got this nice and sharpened, and I lost it as well, but I also did this one, this gouge as well. So they're good and sharp, and sharp enough for what I need, I believe. So sorry that I didn't get that footage. I could resharpen them. I'm not sure if I will, but you get the general idea. Same for this one. Find the right angle and then rotate, and you go from there. So there we have it, folks. We got all of our chisels sharpened. They've got a nice edge on them. I may still run this one through the grinder, but I think this edge is pretty good. So we got our scraper done, we got our parting tool, both of our skew chisels, and both of our gouges. So it's a little bit of a technique if you use a grinder. I do believe that using a grinder removes a lot of material, but at the same time, using the stones just seems more difficult to me. So I would have a tendency to go with whatever I can get a decent edge on it that'll actually cut through the wood real nice, and I think this grinder does a good job of that. Again, I'm not putting a lot of pressure on it to remove a whole bunch of material, so I should be able to use the grinder for most of it and get as sharp as I need. So once again, I want to remind you to check out my Patreon page. The link, I'll put it up here again. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and click the notification icon. Any shares or likes would be greatly appreciated as well. So thank you for tuning in. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you next time.